Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Senior Masters Qatar 2016 ITTF World Tour Grand Final. Welcome to Doha, this men's doubles semi-final. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the number 3 seeds from Russia, Mikhail PAIKOV and Alexey LIVENTSOV. And please welcome from Korean Republic, the number 60, Sangsu and JEOUNG Youngsik. Ladies and gentlemen, your officials, the umpire from Japan, Kyoko, and the assistant umpire also from Japan is Yumiko Morikawa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Alexey LIVENTSOV and Mikhail PAIKOV against JEOUNG Youngsik and Sangsu in his men's doubles semi-final.
A very warm welcome to our continuing live coverage of the Seamaster Qatar 2016 ITTF World Tour Grand Finals. 10 matches in all on today's generous order of play, and by the end of play tonight, all final berths will be accounted for as we head towards the business end of the tournament. The medal podiums draw even closer. Our feature match on table 1 right now, a men's doubles, the first showing of men's doubles. Semi-final from the bottom half of the draw. Alexey LIVENTSOV of Russia with his partner Mikhail PAIKOV as third seeds take on the second seeded Korean duo of JEOUNG Youngsik and Lee Sangsu. Let's just get ready for the Russian duo LIVENTSOV and PAIKOV. Well, they ousted in the quarterfinals the 8th seeds in an all-European face-off. They took out the Belgian duo of Devos and Youngsik 4-0 in that encounter. Those two were runners-up in the Hungarian Open. And for the Koreans, they took out the Japanese pair in the 7th seeds, Kokinyawa and Yoshimura as well, the world-ranked 9th pair. That was a real epic as well, 4-3, 16-14 in the 7th game. So, well, you know, there's one man who's been out here, spent a lot of time on this table, JEOUNG Youngsik from Korea. He might be a little tired, one would imagine. He has had a career win in his first singles. Just to remind you, if you are just joining us, he took out on the opening day the 4th seed in the singles, Yun Mizutani. And then yesterday, well, what a match. Trailing, love 2 in games, he took out Chuang Chi-yuan, the 5th seed as well. So, well, he really is on form, JEOUNG. His partner Lee Sangsu, and he live with him and complement his X-factor at the moment. So in this high-caliber Russian-Korean clash from the bottom of the men's doubles draw, the 3rd seeds take on the 2nd seeds here. Paul Hand here in your company. Alongside me, I'm delighted to say, Johnny Cowan. How you doing?
Paul, hello. Welcome, everybody. Marhaba. This will be a fascinating one here, as you say there, Paul. Key, I think, within the dynamic of the doubles here, JEOUNG Youngsik has had an amazing year. Superb stuff at the Rio Olympics, also at the World Tour Korean Open, and now, as we were talking yesterday, in the Chinese Super League, really coming through on the world stage, world number 10. No doubt his world ranking will go up, the 24-year-old, after the victories that you mentioned. I think he could be pivotal in this doubles. If he's on fire and still has plenty of energy, the way he was playing yesterday against Chuang Chi-yuan, over the table particularly, watch his backhand. There he is on the right-hand side. Lee Sangsu on the left. Backhand right over the table generates so much spin and power. It's amazing to watch. Plays all over the table on the backhand. Probably a tactic for the Russians to think about. Left-handed, right-handed combination of the guys from Russia in red. See how they nullify JEOUNG if they can. Maybe they'll use the left-handed style to push him wide on the forehand.
Yeah, the backhand really is his signature shot. They'll have to negate that, that's for sure. But for the other three players, well, you know, this is their first appearance on table one. They've been playing out on table three in the second hall. And of course, it's all subtly different, Johnny, isn't it? Takes a little while to settle, maybe. It's very focused in the warm-up, though. Big moment, this. And of course, to remind you, if you are just joining us, this is a best-of-7 game match. Race to 4. Usually on the World Tour, it's the best-of-5. Not so here. Extended. These guys will have to focus for a little longer and really earn their generous paychecks on this superb world stage. Season-ending finale here, of course. $500,000 prize money in all.
Of course. Supported by our sponsors here on the World Tour, Seamaster and Qatar, sharing that responsibility as we now get underway in this men's doubles semi-final.
Lee Sangsu of Korea to start us off. Ultimately, it's about having trust in your partner and just doing your job as best you can.
There, the first example of the JEOUNG Youngsik backhand over the table.
Alternate shots, of course, in doubles. Johnny, you were mentioning it in the women's doubles that we saw in the match prior. And of course, the serve has to go cross table. Hence using that middle line. So both teams just probing. Dismissive backhand.
Well, that's the tactic there, I guess, playing to in our conversation earlier, Paul. The left-handed backhand there, allowing you to play the angles against the two right-handers. Could be a defining feature here in this match. Equally now, let's just see if we can see some effective serving from the left-handed Mikhail. PAIKOV didn't quite work in the previous doubles for the left-handed pairing, left-handed, right-handed combination. Let's see how the Russians do. Beautiful backhand down the line. The way he played it there, Alexey LIVENTSOV, so much feeling. Beautiful. Sometimes it's not just always about power to win the points.
A little bit of luck there for the Koreans. Ball just teetering on the net. Running the right way for them, the men in blue. Delightful soft hands. Interesting, Johnny, the Russians sort of strong in doubles as the third seeds, not so in singles. So obviously, like other sports, it's quite a specialist discipline, isn't it, doubles? It's different altogether.
Yeah, and as you were saying earlier, Paul, you know, it's about trust and having a relationship where you understand the mechanics of one another and how you move and your style, and sometimes it just gels exceptionally well.
Just resetting, not quite ready. A little ambitious there with that receive. JEOUNG. Wonder actually, Johnny, you know, it is a talking point, isn't it? Just how fatigued he is, and what with all the emotionality over the Yunmizitani win as well. Quite something. Difficult to know, you know, how he slept. You know, what are the papers writing the next day back home about me? All those kind of thoughts running through his mind. The adulation that he's been receiving. We know he's a lovely, warm-hearted man and so generous in his engagements. That's all tiring.
It is, but I guess he'll be focused here, won't he, Paul? He'll be in the zone, you know. He could continue to do special things here at the grand finals. Truly make a name for himself as he tries to move above the world number 10 ranking that he sits at the moment.
Yeah, you would imagine he'll be jumping right inside the top 10 now, you know, just as you say, at 10, and after his endeavours here, probably round about 8, maybe 7 in the world, even if he were to lose today. He's got his work cut out later. He's up against the might of the world's best, Ma Long.
But on show here, a very strong partnership. Watch the reaction to this point one by the Russians. Fist pumping, motivated. They've looked quite solid here. It's been a little bit of a patchy opening game, but that's to be expected in a semi-final. Again, as you were mentioning, Paul, moving in from table 2 in the other hall into table 1 in the main arena can take a little bit of adjustment.
I mean, no doubt they'd have practiced on this table at some stage, you know, in anticipation of just this, but it's not quite the same, is it? That match environment slightly different, the nerves kicking in. They're handling themselves well, the marginal lead for the men in red. Negated now, though. Lefty's forehand spilling over the back line. Deadlock in this opener. Race to 4 games. Vying for a berth in this year's final. And of course, worth mentioning, Morizono and Oshima at the very top of the draw, desperate to repeat Lisbon's fortunes as defending champions. They'll go up against Ho Kwan Kit and Tang Pong of Hong Kong.
Great variation in the receives from the Russians. Watch how he breaks the wrist here on the receive. Alexey LIVENTSOV putting the Koreans under pressure.
Very brave going into the backhand of JEOUNG that, but it was a lovely deep push.
Let's see if JEOUNG has the nerve to go for the aggressive backhand flick shot here, trailing 8-10. Chose the touch and it wasn't enough. Russian pairing very aggressive in that last point to secure the opening game. 11 points to 8.
The opening game to Alexey LIVENTSOV Mikhail PAIKOV. We take the opening game 11-8.
Watching some of the highlights of the opening game where the Russian duo just gelling very, very well together. There's a real understanding and a sort of relationship commitment there. These guys just seem to have that marginal edge at the moment as opposed to the two much higher ranked singles players in blue. Lefty to get us underway. Mikhail PAIKOV. Game 2.
As as you say, Paul, the two Russian players here in red, they just seem to gel exceptionally well. They seem to have a real clear understanding of one another. And that's something that we should all embrace in our doubles play, or when we're trying to find our doubles partners in either our club teams or national teams. Sometimes it's not always about putting the top-ranked players together, but finding pairings where you have that understanding, that ability to connect and gel, which is very powerful when you find it.
But of course, often you see, pairings at lower levels than this tournament, so switching a lot in terms of who they play up with, thinking that actually it's not my fault, I didn't lose that match, it was you, so there's a lot of sort of switching, toing and throwing in there until you find that sort of almost ideal, if you will. Or it might often take a coach of significance to say, no, you guys will work really well together. Voice of authority. Well, of course, in that instance, he just wants to keep the ball so tight, low over the net. As soon as that ball pops up in doubles, it's advantage the opponent. Good energy from the Koreans, much more vocal now. Strong start in the second game for them. 3-point lead already.
There's the JEOUNG backhand over the table. We didn't see huge amounts of it in the first game. Watch the technique as he zips through. Incredible acceleration. He doesn't take the racket back that far, but what he does do is he zips through that ball.
Almost got a visual in my mind's eye of him on the elastics in the hotel room, just working that forearm to get that snap.
But there, perhaps, if the world number 10 does have a weakness, is just there on the forehand side. I think the Russians in red should exploit that. They try to use their left-right combination, particularly with PAIKOV's left-handed backhand, to go wide out JEOUNG's forehand. This time it was wide out Sangsu's forehand. Excellently well played by Alexey LIVENTSOV. His timing as well on his backhand is superb. We've seen it a couple of times now. Taking the ball nice and early, deceptively, playing beautifully down the line.
Yeah, again, it was the backhand quality from LIVENTSOV that just tangling up Sangsu into the body, unable to release the racket head here. Just spilling long. Interestingly, the left-handed, right-handed Russian combination with the bolstered middle, two forehands at their disposal. So the lead has dissipated for the Koreans. And we're back level in this second game.
Spirited comeback here by LIVENTSOV and PAIKOV. And their vocal contribution just giving us an indication of their positivity. Were well behind in this second game, now find themselves 1 point up.
They're very solid, aren't they? They're not quite as sort of flashy or creative, but they are so consistent, and it's serving them well. The simplistic ability to get the ball back on the table when it counts most.
This is a great ball from PAIKOV. It looked as if he wasn't even going to make the ball. When he got there, he accelerated on it down the line for the winner.
It's a little bit like Shushin's raking lefty forehand. Breaking the run of points that the Russians had engineered, the Koreans. The energy is back. Still work to do, though.
There we see the example of what we talked about earlier, Paul. The left-handed backhand of PAIKOV. Here it comes, wide out the forehand. Look at the technique of JEOUNG Youngsik. It's just not as comfortable as he is on the backhand. I think that's something we might see more of as this game continues.
A rare backhand error then from Mikhail PAIKOV there. And so secure on that wing. Yeah, it's that backhand flip kill over the table where he's deadly. JEOUNG. Time and again, it's been the standout feature of the tournament for the man who has just had, well, the tournament of his life, frankly. It's been the standout player of the event for me so far. A couple of back-to-back career wins in singles. Different discipline this, though. And of course, Johnny, the big talking point in doubles, it's about twinning your skills and timing your excellence together, isn't it? It's all very well one player playing well 1 minute and the other coming a bit later, but it's about getting those resources together. That's when you really get the scoreboard. Oh, beautiful shot from Sangsu, just tying the Russian up into the body there.
That's a great counter topspin from Sangsu. He saw it coming like a football. Accelerated cross court.
Deadlock second game then.
Interesting to see what serves they go for here. Will they go for the little deft float serve, no spin, have it pop? Seemed to be the float. Allowed Sangsu to come in on the attack on the flick. Gives the Korean pairing game point here in game 2 to level at 1-1. Beautifully timed by PAIKOV there. Watching the replay, how he just waits. Is it coming off the end of the table? Yes, it is. Accelerates through, generates here. We'll see it better from this angle. How he moves across. Nice little topspin that JEOUNG Youngsik just can't deal with.
So it's a juice game. Who's going to blink first here? That's unlucky. Spilling off the net cord, long of the table. Frustration for the Russians, you'd imagine. No time for that, though. It's about focusing. Second game point opportunity then for Jung and Lee here. Oh, he finds an edge ball, does Jung, to level the match. And, well, didn't they do well, the blue team, to just claw this one back? Don't go anywhere, back after the break.
They take the second game 12-10. 1 game on.
Players coming back for game 3 then. It's all to play for here in this race to 4 games. Locked in at 1 game each. Blues against the Reds. Korea against Russia. Second seeds against the third seeds. It's exciting semi-final from the bottom half of the draw. So much to play for in this year-ending finale. Just loaded with prize money and points. Best athletes in the world going toe-to-toe out here on table one. PAIKOV just getting a little tangled. We've seen that of late a few more times. It's almost like they're just sort of tying him up into the body of the left-hander. LIVENTSOV as well, just spilling a backhand error himself. They'll have to draw down and lock down with their focus now, the Russians.
Yeah, I think it's important for the Korean pairing to be a little bit more proactive. I think perhaps a little bit passive in the opening two games. We're allowing LIVENTSOV and PAIKOV to swing a little bit,
Rather
dominate
like that.
some of the points. Yeah, exactly.
Incredible backhand from LIVENTSOV there, just to get the upper hand in the point. Look at this. Vicious racket head speed. Soft hands letting him down there. Only by the increment of about a millimeter. Nonetheless, matches turn on that kind of error. JEOUNG just a sigh of frustration as he spills long over the back of the table.
Interesting here, Paul, where this morning's women doubles semi-final, we had the Korean pairing who were positive in opening up in the rally. Fascinating that the Hong Kong-China pairing were more than comfortable to absorb that pressure and then turn it back on the Koreans. We're actually seeing the reverse here, I think, in this match, where it is the pairing who opens up first who's dominating. So just an interesting shift in the patterns of play between previous doubles match and this one.
Yeah, it's definitely favouring the aggressor, absolutely. Both teams trying to get onto the front foot quickly here on full.
Really difficult to know where JEOUNG Youngsik's going to go on his backhand receive. Very, very effective when he flicks over the table.
It's the versatility, isn't it? He can just go anywhere. So tough to read as well. And the utter confidence and conviction with which he commits. That's unlucky.
Sangsu just avoiding any injuries on the corner of the table there. I always used to find it a little bit intimidating as a right-hander serving into a left. Only because if it floats off the table in any shape or form, the left-hander generally can get in and attack you. In those moments, you just have to relax and trust in all the hours practice that you're able to execute in the big arena, in the big moment, serve the ball that you want to serve.
It's almost like the set plays in doubles, the discipline of doubles are almost more sort of poignant than in singles, isn't it? Because they are so more rigid. You know, the serve has to go cross table, and it's just a little bit more confined in that regard.
And of course, you don't control all the controllables because you've got your partner as well. So you've got to serve and create sequences that benefit the pairing and not just your own singles play, for example.
So you're constantly thinking about your other half's strength behind your serve.
Sangsu just getting a little bit excited there, or he's misread the serve, thinking there's lots of chop on it. He's gone for an extensive move on the flick. Shakes his head there, maybe just to get back in the zone, because he missed the table there by at least 2 feet.
It's interesting because you've got the standout backhand of the Korean JEOUNG, but also the Russians' backhand. Well, you have to compliment them on that because they're just spiking through them, really, with great effect. Look at this.
Russian players always have a certain style and effectiveness in their stroke play. Technically very strong. serve. Bad mistake. Lee Sangsu's just lost his grip and concentration, I think, the last 2 or 3 points.
You would imagine, Johnny, that that might be psychological. I'm playing alongside who's becoming a legend in JEOUNG Youngsik. You know, he's having such a good tournament. Must be pressure for Lee Sangsu to step up and join him.
Well, and then it only takes you to lose 1, 2, then maybe a 3rd point in doubles, and suddenly you start to put pressure perhaps on yourself that goes, oh, gee, I'm letting my teammate down here. But again, another reason why it's so important to be able to gel as a partnership, understand one another, not blame one another. You train together, you practice for this, you go out and do battle together, regardless of what happens.
A good marriage through thick or thin?
Something like that.
So comfortable, deep way off the table there. What immaculate defense.
Rally of the game so far. Look at the movement of all 4 players.
Lee Sangsu just spilling long there, not quite enough spin.
Again, Lee Sangsu.
Yeah, it's starting to niggle away at the back of his mind, I'm sure. Confidence.
We'll have to watch now, see how he reacts, see how he can come back.
PAIKOV again, unleashing the fury at him right there. Scoreboard symmetry again.
Good comeback by the Russians. They looked as if they were losing the grip on this 3rd game here, but they're back at 8-all. Just look at the body language. Lee Sangsu almost knows. Pull his level back up. I'm sure he can, and I'm sure he will.
Again, tangling up the body of the left-handed Russian, Mikhail PAIKOV.
Look how high he takes the ball, Jung. Watch when it comes back to him for the winner. Watch how high he takes the ball. Nice and early. Enables him to keep the pressure. A lot of players let the ball drop too far down.
Counter loop.
Yes, you lose then the ability to
smack
impart.
Through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep the pressure on.
Hit it at its apex. Right. A roar from the Russians. They square up this game again. It's a really tight, intriguing contest. Team Russia, you feel with the marginal momentum right here, just gelling in timely fashion.
Will the left-handed serve of PAIKOV generate an advantage here? Beautiful, relaxed technique as well from Alexey LIVENTSOV. Watch the backhand here. He's just so relaxed. Again, something to learn for everybody. He's not going for an out-and-out winner. He's playing high percentage double play, where he's spinning the ball up into a strategically positioned area of the table.
Game point on PAIKOV's serve. Denied. A wonderful receive. Lee Sangsu stepping up there commendably. Right at the business end of this 3rd game. Now he has a serve of his own. Interesting rituals for each of these quirky players. It's a control thing, a relaxing issue. Good spiked forehand here from JEOUNG. Not enough in the end though. Russians ever solid. It's 2-1 advantage to Russia. What a wonderful finish to that 3rd game for them. They're delighted. 12-10. They snatched the 3rd game.
To Alexey LIVENTSOV Mikhail PAIKOV. They take the 3rd game 12-10. They lead by 2 games to 1.
players back for game 4, looking very pensive and extremely focused. They've all got that still-eyed gaze of 4 men on a mission. They're all very coy, humble, respectful of each other's skills. They know they have to bring their A game simultaneously as a duo if they're to cross the finish line towards the W here. Berth in the final up for grabs. It's bringing out their best.
Again, Paul, just fascinating to watch how 2 higher-ranked players can be put under pressure by 2 lower-ranked players who are playing exceptionally well together. And as well as that, the body language there. Great shot there from Sangsu right over the table, because he struggled at the back end of the last game. Yet when you watch the body language of the 2 Russian players, they're absolutely united, strong.
It's all about communication, isn't it? Your partner's struggling to them and trying to lift them and relax them. And sometimes just going back to good, solid, basic set plays, doing the simple things very efficiently.
So great start here for JEOUNG Youngsik and Sangsu, 4-0 in game 4.
Sangsu just overrunning that forehand there, kind of misread the situation, and
beautiful, relaxed backhand from LIVENTSOV again. Watch this. Again, something for everybody to think about. It's not always about trying to generate lots of power and throwing your body at the ball. You can create advantage by playing a well-placed spinny ball, particularly in doubles, where sometimes it's just about trying to keep the rally alive if you find yourself out of position with your partner.
The change up on the receive there from PAIKOV, the looped backhand. To no avail in the end, though. The Koreans up to it. They really are focused. They've got the marginal edge in this game. Thunderous backhand from JEOUNG.
Get the sense they've just upped their energy levels here, Paul. They're bouncing around now, the Koreans. They've upped their noise level, celebration level as well.
That wrist was just coiled and loaded with energy and then ripped through it viciously, JEOUNG. Backhand from the top draw time and again we see it.
Much better from Sangsu. He's responded well after the last game, really making a solid contribution in this 4th game. Look at that for a ball down the line.
Yeah, he's
just
really got it
changes
together.
the wrist at the last moment.
Fast long serve, but it didn't have any advantage in the end. The Koreans up to it.
Watch this reaction block on the backhand from Sangsu. There it is. And then a beautiful, look how he's watched that. JEOUNG Youngsik. Top of the bounce cross court. Beautiful. Serving at 8-2. Very big turnaround here in performance levels from the Koreans.
And the standout for me in this game is that the JEOUNG backhand has just come alive, and Sangsu's backing it up as well.
I think that's the key, you know. I don't think they've been pairing and backing up just as well in previous games. It's really kicking off in this 4th game for the Koreans.
They're starting to gel together. You know, earlier I was saying it's about playing good ball at the same time. That's what's happened to the men in blue.
We talked about how strong the Russian pairing look like in terms of how they're gelling. It'll be a real test if they do end up with a thumping here in the fourth game, if they can bounce back from that. Let's see if that's a test on how strong they are together.
Well, they are the marginal underdogs, the men in red, just by one seeded spot. Third seed serving to the second.
That's an incredible forehand receive over the table. A bit of a loose serve, but you have to make it happen, and he certainly does there, Lee Sangsu.
He's really stepping up, isn't he? Mental giant qualities. Oh.
Equally beautiful forehand from LIVENTSOV. Watch how he just moves his body into position here. Sends that down. Again, very relaxed technique.
Yeah.
A little bit like golf, you know, you don't have to swing hard to hit hard.
11-4 then. The Koreans draw level in their fourth game, and we're locked in at 2 games all. Don't go anywhere. Back after the short break.
Men's doubles semi-final. It's 2 games.
Back for game 5 here in this tantalizing men's doubles semi-final from the bottom half of the draw. We're locked in at 2 games all, and it's all to play for in this race to 4 games, best of 7. And well, we were just talking off air, weren't we, Johnny, that this could well go the distance. It's been just nip and tuck the whole way, so little between both teams. And the man on the right of your picture there, Lee Sangsu, really coming to the party in the last game. He has very much stepped up.
He has, Paul, and I think that's the difference. He was a little bit down on his performance levels, particularly in the third game. But in that fourth, he was outstanding, and maybe that's been the difference between losing the game in the third and winning the fourth. Interested to see now if he can hold that level. Certainly looks like he can, given the start here.
He's ignited, hasn't he? He's starting to really enjoy his time, and I think that's when a player really breaks those shackles of sort of, you know, they're stifled, aren't they? Now he's having fun, and the sort of the symphony begins.
Equally important will be the reaction of the 2 Russians, because I thought... Oh, super rally. I was just saying, you know, their demeanor and their togetherness has been solid, and they've played good table tennis with that as the foundation. They're being tested here now, their resilience.
Yeah, especially having lost the last game and only taking 4 points off the Koreans as well. It's a tough ask for the men in red. And again, up against it.
Just sense there's been a gear change from JEOUNG and Lee.
Yeah, they're seemingly flicking into cruise control now.
Lee Sangsu just kind of saying sorry, and you watch him there, he's just redoing his service technique and then his backhand block. He knows he's not quite executed those so well. Tactical chat about the service and the routine.
Furious with himself. I'm not sure he wants to be giving away that kind of body language to the Russians. They'll probably feed off that psychologically.
Well, yeah, you're right. That would be confirming the weakest link scenario, wouldn't it, Paul? Right, okay, look at the reaction. He's the one that's showing some frailty. Let's try to capitalize.
Yeah, the Russians sniffing blood now. They seemingly eking their way back into this vital fifth. Rare unforced error off the backhand receive from JEOUNG Youngsik.
Well done to the Reds. They've come back from 4-0 to 4-all.
It's terrific.
Another example, Paul, why we need the courts so big for these World Tour events. These players so athletic and powerful, covering so much ground.
Inspiration from the Russians of late.
What a shot that is. I've never seen a backhand like that before.
It's like he was kind of mid-air, just floating across the table. Look at that, he was
He's
indeed.
almost come under it as well. Incredible shot from Mikhail PAIKOV.
A moment of inspiration.
So their 6 points in a row comes to an end. JEOUNG and Lee taking that one.
Deadlock again on the scoreboard. So much to play for. Each of these teams between them will have made $4,500 US, but they're playing for double that should they make the final, and then double it up again. $18,000 US to the winner of the men's doubles event at this level. Wow.
All square, 2-all, 6-all. Service, Lee Sangsu.
Interesting,
Oh.
really interesting, Johnny, though, isn't it? How the Koreans just jumped out for a 4-love lead and extended it further to 6. And then suddenly the Russians bit back with pretty much 6 in a row. It's just incredible how both teams are going on these long runs. Passage of play, excellent from both. So watchable.
That was a key point because the point before, JEOUNG Youngsik misses a sitter, almost like an open goal scenario. The opportunity was created by Lee Sangsu's attack over the table, and JEOUNG just caught up in his forehand technique. They've leveled it back here now at 7-all. Service back to Alexey LIVENTSOV.
That one, that'll get on the highlights reel.
Look how the Russian pairing are so comfortable away from the table. Brilliant, but then tactically, watch how the Koreans play into the left-hander's backhand, into the right-hander's backhand. Look, they're both going into the backhand sides to limit what the Russians can come back with. And time timeout call. We're just watching the replay. Look, see, they're playing to the backhands of each side just to prevent them from counter top spinning with the forehand for the tables to turn. That's clever play from the Koreans. Sometimes a tactic deployed is if you're attacking an opponent close to the table, go to the forehand, because the distance from the hand to the eye is further away. The backhand is always in front of the body. So generally, it's thought that you can always react to it easier when you're close to the table. So when the player's close to the table, maybe attack the forehand, but when they're away from the table, attack the backhand, because there's less opportunity to really swing the racket and make a comeback. Timeout then, Paul. Crucial moments. Game 5. Probably a pivotal game in this match, would you say?
Very much. You've got to think so, haven't you? Always that fifth game just so critical, but at this stage, just so little between these two teams. And you can see, in admiration of both of these teams, you know, their second and third seeded status. Well, there's a good reason for that. This is just a quality watch. Compelling view.
So let's see who reacts best to that 60 seconds timeout.
It comes down to the mental dynamics for me now, Johnny. You've got to have that deep-seated subconscious belief. Those set plays are just wired into your psyche. You have to have trust in your partner big time.
So, Republic of Korea lead by 1 point. Interesting for me will be to see how JEOUNG Youngsik there receives. Will he go round on the backhand and flick? He did, but he missed it.
He went for it, definitely. Went for his strength. Why not? That sensible play. Good serve from PAIKOV, though. Loaded with spin. Drew the error from JEOUNG. Deadlock again in this vital fifth game. For elite performance at this stage, it's about a narrow thought bridge, just simple thoughts going through your mind.
That's an incredible forehand from Sangsu. Watch how he watches the ball, lets it come towards him, then accelerates through it with his full body part. Almost does a complete body pivot over the umpire's table.
Certainly very dynamic.
Once again, another learn for me is just watch the way PAIKOV takes the receive. He does a lovely backhand flick. He doesn't go for a flat-out winner. I see lots of players thinking they have to win the point out right off the serve. PAIKOV there, beautiful flick, opens the rally again, trusting his partner LIVENTSOV to come to the party behind him.
It just looked a little bit, the team in red, the Russians, just look a little bit more secure mentally for me when they're backed away from the table. Do you concur with that?
Yeah, I
just
think...
a marginal, I'm talking an increment, but it seems, you know, reassuring for them, I think. They don't need to panic as much.
They're certainly playing a steady game as well. You know, it's Sangsu's kind of up and down. If he's up, some points won. And if he's down, maybe then not so good.
No prizes for who won that point. The men in blue just roaring in response. Big moment here. It brings up game point for the Koreans. Sangsu holding his racket up as if to gesture, hold on, you wait for me. I am going to be ready before I start this point. They snatch the fifth game, and look at the energy in response. 11 points to 9. They lead 3-2 in this men's semi-final from the bottom half of the draw. Don't go anywhere. Back shortly.
They lead by 3 games to 2.
Game 6 then. It's all happening here on table 1. Doha, ITTF World Tour Grand Finals in the company of Paul Hand and Johnny Cowan. Delighted to have you along. Race to 4 games. The Koreans just a game away now from a berth in the final. They've got a lot of work to do against the men in red.
Although I think momentum's with them, Paul.
2 in a row for the men in blue in terms of games won. The penultimate, well, the 4th game they took 11 points to 4. Then they edged out the 5th game 11-9. So can the Russians just burst their bubble of momentum?
Crucial again will be the contribution of Sangsu. Already there with that backhand, he's in positive mode. Explosive backhand over the table. We'll see it here.
It's a loaded receive from Mikhail PAIKOV. Wonderful backhand, just oodles of spin. And security and safety too.
Good high percentage shot. At crucial times when the heat is on. Oh, they deserve that. The 2 lads from Russia. Alexey LIVENTSOV's played an incredible recovery, counter topspin. This one right here, very difficult to calculate the amount of spin when a player hits the net. He did very, very well. Great hands, great feeling.
There's a real efficiency to the Russian duo, isn't there? There's an ease. It looks so repeatable. I would suggest their undulations have been fewer. They're much more stable the way. You can see they've played a lot together over the years. There's an intuition. It's a 4-1 lead in the 6th game for 3rd seeds in red.
Good response from them, Paul, after losing the last 2 games.
Very much. Well, it's a must-win game for them, isn't it? Let's face it. Lose this, they're out of the tournament. Their title bid over.
I think if they can stop JEOUNG from flicking over the table here and then impose their game. Well, he did flick it, but they were ready for it. And LIVENTSOV has been very impressive on his counter topspins. This one on the forehand side this time. He's gone down the line. That's a difficult choice.
Rock solid LIVENTSOV for me. He's just been, well, yeah, the rock. Perhaps a little less flamboyant, but just brilliant.
Great footwork from Sangsu. Look how he got his body out of the way.
Yeah, super agile.
Going to his body, right into the belly button. Moves himself around to play the forehand. That created pressure on LIVENTSOV for that receive. You're taking that second one thinking, it doesn't matter where I go here. Sangsu's going to get the forehand in. You then try and put too much pressure on yourself to make a real impact on the receive. And guess what you do? You make an error.
Yeah, a rare unforced for LIVENTSOV. But they've created a little bit of breathing room, the Russians, then, in a 3-point lead in this vital 6th.
Difficult one, that. Just the way the rally broke up with the net cord in the middle. Once that happens, you kind of lose your rhythm. Again, LIVENTSOV's done amazingly well to pick that up, but then the short ball's just a little bit too short for PAIKOV, although left-hander nearly converted it.
Demeanor and body language of the Koreans, very, very good right now.
I think for the first time in the match, Paul, we just see LIVENTSOV and PAIKOV trying to do a little bit too much. Trying to go for big flicks, both of them. Just trust in how they played together as a team. There we see it. Koreans have come at them, but they've had the confidence and the ability to counteract. "12 points played in game 6. Chance to take the towel, of course, every 6 points.
And the tension's palpable out there, isn't it? All 4 men just locked down with laser-like focus.
I think for me, the Koreans need to attack first, get in with their spinny, normally their backhand flicks. And I think for the Russians, they just have to relax, absorb that first one, trust themselves as a unit.
Which they have done until now. There's a little bit of doubt about it, as I can feel where you're going with that, yeah.
And actually, that's both tactics merged together in that point right there. JEOUNG did attack it, but LIVENTSOV's been relaxed enough to play that counter topspin. He's trusted in his ability there.
And again, LIVENTSOV flawless. Sangsu questionable.
You see, again, something for us to learn. LIVENTSOV hasn't been biffing the ball past the Korean pairing, right? This isn't about hitting the barriers with glorious winners. What he has done is fantastic technique, solid on both backhand and forehand sides, but plays the right ball at the right time. Beautiful top spins and well placed as well.
And I think as well, Johnny, I think with that, he's had laser-like focus. His concentration has been just so good throughout this match. Well, fortune favours the brave, they say. Not so there for PAIKOV. Just spilling long of the table. Went for it. Unlucky with the neck cord.
That was
Sometimes
clever.
That breaks for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed. But clever from Sangsu. He's seen that PAIKOV's been away from the table left-hander, so he's played short into his forehand, which means he had the most distance to cover around the table. So, crucial sequence here. LIVENTSOV with the serve, 9-7 to level. Can they level in these 2 points? The 3-game ball. It's a good start. 1 of 2 in the bag.
3 game points then to square this match for the men in red. It's been a mouth-watering encounter so far.
Oh, the first time we've seen LIVENTSOV panic a little bit. Maybe the ball didn't bounce so well, or maybe he's just gone for it at 10-7.
That looked a little snatchy, didn't it?
Extremely. First time we've seen that.
Yeah. Normally been the go-to man for the Russians, to be fair, and that's not any discredit to PAIKOV, but LIVENTSOV normally rock solid. Not so there.
Maybe 10-7, he felt he'd just have a crack.
Has a little breathing room. Still 2 more game points to take us the distance. Denied for the second time. Korean saying, hold on a minute, we're going to try and wrap this up right here. Still work to do, though, for them. 3rd game point opportunity for the Russians. Looping from the Koreans. They're back in this 6th game, locking in at 10 points all. Just 2 points away from the final then, the men in blue now.
Look at the physicality of all 4 players, the body transfer, the power that goes into these counter topspin rallies. Table tennis at a high, high level.
Why finish? After you spin is broken. I hit it before.
Dispute around whether the ball's broken in the middle of the rally.
Well, I think LIVENTSOV suggesting he stopped play because the ball had cracked. He heard it, gestured to the umpire.
You play this and broken. Finish and broken. Yes, but how he can put table if ball is broken? No.
I'm not sure. I think it might have finished before
That's exactly
it
the
broke.
issue. The Russians are suggesting it cracked mid-point. Do we replay the point with a new ball? That's what they're getting to. And the Koreans are suggesting the point was over before that was mentioned. And the score's being called more poignantly.
I think this is one of the areas in the game that will always create these situations. We're seeing the balls breaking in the middle of rallies, and of course that will generate these debates for sure. I'd have to see it again. I mean, you can, here we go. So let's see if we can see from body language whether...
Yeah, with respect, Johnny, my first thought is that the Russians contested the point fully to the best of their abilities. There was no stopping there by anybody. Everybody was fully engaged. And then LIVENTSOV puts his finger up as if to say, well, hang on, but that's too late, isn't it, in my book?
I think so. And I think certainly that's what the scoreboard is suggesting
score stands
at the moment.
by the look of things.
Although I'm just watching down on the court, might be suggesting that we may be going back to 10-9.
Oh, we are.
Scoreboard on screen.
We are, indeed.
Still showing 10-10.
We're going to replay the point.
Interesting.
So maybe another
So there we
lifeline
go.
here for the Russians.
Confirmed on screen. Going to replay the point.
Terrific serve from Sangsu. Half-long second bounce right on the back of the table. PAIKOV unable to release the racket head around that one.
Exactly, perfect serve, that double bounce, as you say, Paul.
So justice done. Sense of aggrievement all gone for the Koreans. Game point for the Russians here. Our score graphic is wrong. The Russians have a game point to take us the distance. And they do just that. The Russian third-seeded duo win that game 12 points to 10. We're going the distance out here on table one in this men's doubles semi-final. Locked in at 3 games all. Don't go anywhere. Back after the short break.
So players coming back to the table for a 7th and final deciding game in this men's doubles semi-final at the Seamaster Qatar 2016 ITTF World Tour Grand Finals. Spirited effort by the Russian players in red to level at 3-all. Again, for me, tactics. Korean players there in blue, if they can get in over the table with their first top spins, I think they'll be victorious. If the Russians are able to absorb that attack and play as strong as a unit as they have done, then they'll be victorious.
Well, it's so easy to overpress as well, isn't it? In this game of such fine margins, and Sangsu, they're just upset with himself, stomping on the floor and missing that forehand that he should have made.
Sangsu. Again, we've seen it throughout this match. A couple of errors in the early part of the match. Games 1-2, going into 3 from Lee Sangsu, and then in games 4 and 5, he was incredible.
Interesting roar as well on the first couple of points from the Russians, because almost getting into Lee Sangsu's face, but redeeming himself here with a solid receive. So staying in touch. It's almost like the Russians have made a declaration to each other that after every point they're going to roar. It's guttural.
The tension out there, Paul. You know, players put so much into this through the calendar year. They're here at the grand finals. They're here in the semi-final. Every point matters.
It's the climax of their calendar, isn't it? Let's face it.
And so the emotion and the joes mean so much. Back at 3-all, 3-3, 3-3.
All the threes.
Difficult one to call this. Mental strength, sticking together, executing tactics well. Maybe a little bit of luck. LIVENTSOV with the serve.
It's a heady time for world table tennis, Johnny, when you can showcase a match like this on the world stage. Terrific. It's a lion-hearted effort from both teams, and it's coming down to the wire.
Nicely cushioned on the backhand block there from PAIKOV. We'll see it again, Paul. Watch how JEOUNG comes in, but PAIKOV just relaxed, just takes the block. Again, some players we see panic when they're being attacked. Important to just stay cool, ride the storm.
Body language of Lee Sangsu tells its own picture. He's wrestling with himself right now. Still nothing between them on the scoreboard.
So players will change ends now halfway through the 7th and deciding game. They'll also change the sequence. So JEOUNG, who was serving there, will also serve, but I think he'll serve now to LIVENTSOV.
And what is it with the two Koreans, the men in blue? Their opening doubles encounter in the quarterfinals, they only came through against Kokinawar, and Yoshimura was 16-14 in the vital 7th.
They like getting their money's worth, I think, Paul.
They've paid their entry fee. They want their table time.
It's a beautiful float serve from JEOUNG Youngsik. LIVENTSOV just a bit hesitant, pops it slightly, and Lee Sangsu needs no further invitation. He's right over the table with a rifling forehand right down the middle. Great tactic in doubles.
Is that the start of more from Lee Sangsu as he come back to the party? He's drifted ever so slightly in and out for me. It's a 3-point game for the men in blue at the moment. 7-4 they lead. This race to 11 points. One ball at a time. That's all that matters here.
Dominating now. Sequence of points to the good. The pairing from the Republic of Korea. 8-4 is a healthy position to be in. But of course, we know things can change in an instant. It's coming down to Sangsu, his contribution, Paul. When he gets in over the table, Korea's approach changes. Advantage certainly swings their way, the Koreans. Oh, that's a great ball again from LIVENTSOV. Again, a great example of just how cool he is. So his team trail 8-4. He's up against a backhand topspin from JEOUNG Youngsik. Doesn't panic, here it is. Plays a solid counter topspin. And it's enough to win the point. Something for us all to learn again. You don't have to go out for the all-out winner.
PAIKOV as well with a loaded receive. High percentage.
It's almost like a trading shot, you know, when you're in a long rally, you trade the ball in to keep yourself in. You don't have to panic and flash at it for an out-of-the-blue winner. Trade in the rally. Have confidence that you can absorb any pressure coming back at you.
Korean coach has called timeout sensibly. Stop the rot, 2 points lost. It's a sensible maneuver.
But just going back to that element of trading shots, Paul, it takes a very strong mind to know that you've got the confidence to be able to play that kind of a shot. You know, the Swedes back in the day were masters at it. The top guys and girls in the world, I think, are masters at that. When they're out of position or they know they have to play a percentage shot, low risk, still high quality, but just lowers the risk.
Which way is this one going to swing now? The Koreans just a couple of minutes ago with a 4-point advantage. Now it's reduced to 2. Cleverly calling the timeout. They're chatting to their coach who follows them around assiduously, watching their every move, planning their day. It's all scripted out. Give them the best chance. This man on the right of your picture, well, he's got a marathon day. He's got to take on the world's best at 7 o'clock this evening. Ma Long in singles. Russians, can they continue to reduce the deficit here? Or have they left it too late? 6-8, they trail in the deciding game. Spilling long, courtesy of the net cord. Koreans 2 points away from the final now. So to a roar of delight, that brings up 4 match points. 2 contrasting body languages you will not see.
It was there for the taking.
It was up high, wasn't it?
It was. He's just got out of position. I think he's coming side to side here, across to the backhand. He's just too far. Jumps at the same time as he's needed to just relax on the backhand.
One of the 4 match points saved by the men in red, but still work to do. It's 3 more match points for the Korean duo. To serve it out from the man of the tournament so far. They get there in the end. JEOUNG Youngsik and Sangsu of Korea, the second seeds, world-ranked 3rd pair, coming through 11-7 and 5-7. What an absolute epic that was. Well, let's briefly catch your breath as they receive adulation and warm praise from their coach. But the men in blue today, delighted. Everybody watching this one.
Super performance by the Russian pairing. Solid, push it all the way, but great resilience from the Koreans.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back at very shortly for Teyana of Hong Kong against Miyu Hirano of Japan in our remaining 2 women's singles quarterfinals. Back shortly.